The CEO had just landed in the city after a long flight, and she was ready to check into the luxurious hotel where she had booked her stay for a business conference. She had always appreciated the hotel's reputation for being one of the best in the area. Its sleek modern design, the exquisite amenities, and the top-tier service had made it her go-to place whenever she visited the city for business. After all, as a successful businesswoman, she was used to traveling in style and comfort. When she arrived at the hotel's grand entrance, she felt the familiar sense of ease that came with knowing she would be taken care of. She had been a loyal guest for several years, and the staff knew her well. The doorman greeted her by name and escorted her inside. She was looking forward to getting some rest before her meetings tomorrow. But first, she had one small task to complete: checking in and accessing the VIP lounge. She approached the front desk with a warm smile, as she always did. The receptionist, a young woman, looked up and greeted her politely, but there was something about the way she said, "Good afternoon," that made the CEO pause. The tone seemed to lack the usual warmth she had come to expect from the staff here. It was subtle, but it caught her attention. The CEO handed over her identification and the reservation details. The receptionist typed quickly on the keyboard, then looked up again, her face slightly confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said, "but I'm afraid your reservation doesn't include VIP access." The CEO blinked, surprised. VIP access was something she had always enjoyed as part of her frequent visits. In fact, it was one of the reasons she chose this hotel. She had stayed here many times before, and her status as a regular guest was always acknowledged. But this time the receptionist's words left her feeling a little thrown off. She was certain she had booked the VIP option, so she calmly responded, "I'm sorry, but I believe there must be a mistake. I always book VIP access when I stay here," she said. "Could you check again?" The receptionist hesitated for a moment before typing again, but this time, her expression seemed even more uncertain. "Let me check with my supervisor," she finally said, clearly uncomfortable. The CEO nodded, maintaining her composure. She wasn't one to make a scene, but this was unusual. She had spent a lot of time staying at this hotel, and being denied VIP access felt strange, especially when it was usually offered to guests like her, successful professionals who frequented the place. As the receptionist walked away to speak to her supervisor, the CEO's mind began to race. Was this an oversight? Or was something more at play? She hadn't experienced this kind of treatment in all her years of visiting the hotel. Something felt off, but she pushed those thoughts aside for the moment. She wasn't going to jump to conclusions just yet. A few minutes later, the receptionist returned with her supervisor, a man in his 40s who looked polished and well put together. He had a calm, professional demeanor, but the CEO could tell by his body language that he was nervous about addressing the situation. "I'm terribly sorry, ma'am," the supervisor said. "It seems there was an issue with your reservation, and unfortunately, VIP access was not included. We can, of course, offer you access to our regular lounge and amenities. I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience." The CEO's frustration was building, but she kept her voice even. "I've been a regular guest at this hotel for years. I always book VIP access, and I've never had a problem. Are you telling me this is an error, or is there something more going on here?" The supervisor seemed taken aback by the question, unsure of how to respond. "I can assure you it's just an error. There's no issue beyond that. We're just trying to figure out what went wrong with the reservation system." The CEO didn't buy the explanation. Something didn't feel right. She had worked hard to get where she was, and she wasn't about to be brushed off, especially not in a hotel she had trusted for years. She didn't want to make assumptions, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the mistake was more than just a simple booking error. "I'm afraid I'm not satisfied with that explanation," she said, her voice steady but firm. "As a loyal guest, I expect a higher level of service than this. I want to speak with someone higher up, someone who can give me a more thorough explanation and resolve this." The supervisor looked uncomfortable but nodded. "Of course, ma'am. I will arrange for you to speak with the manager right away." The CEO followed him to the hotel's management office, the unease in her chest growing with each step. The hotel's smooth, high-end atmosphere now seemed to mock her, What had started as a simple check-in had quickly turned into something far more complicated. The thought of what might be behind the sudden denial of VIP access made her uneasy. Was it a mistake? Or was it something else? As they entered the manager's office, she was introduced to the general manager, a man in his 50s who greeted her with a polite, professional smile. The CEO had seen him around the hotel before, but they had never interacted directly. Now she was eager to get to the bottom of this issue. After listening to her recount the situation, the manager's initial reaction was one of surprise, but there was a noticeable tension in his voice as he explained. "I'm very sorry about the inconvenience, ma'am. We've had some technical difficulties with the system recently, and there's been some confusion with VIP reservations." The CEO's patience was running thin. "You're telling me that, after all the times I've stayed here, this is just a technical glitch? Is that what you're saying?" After the unsettling interaction at the front desk and the manager's assurances that the situation would be handled, the CEO couldn't shake off the frustration that had settled in her chest. The conversation had been polite, but there was an underlying feeling that something more was going on than just a booking error. She had always received top-tier service at this hotel, and now, for the first time, she was being made to feel like just another guest, a guest who didn't matter as much as others. She had already made the decision to escalate the matter, but she wasn't about to just sit around and wait for an apology. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. The issue wasn't just about VIP access. It was about respect. She had earned her position in the business world, and she wasn't about to let anyone treat her like she didn't belong. Sitting in her room, she dialed the hotel's corporate number. The phone rang, and each ring seemed to stretch out longer than the last, amplifying her growing impatience. When the line finally picked up, she didn't hesitate to speak her mind. "Hello, my name is CEO's name, and I've been a loyal guest at your hotel for years," she began, keeping her voice calm but firm. "I'm currently staying at one of your locations, and I've just encountered a situation that I believe needs immediate attention. I've been denied access to your VIP services, despite being a frequent guest and always booking the VIP package." The person on the other end of the line, a customer service representative, immediately began apologizing. "I'm terribly sorry to hear that, ma'am. That certainly shouldn't have happened. May I ask what's the issue so I can help?" The CEO didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've already spoken to the front desk and the manager, but the explanation they gave me feels incomplete and unsatisfactory. I've stayed at your hotel several times and always received VIP treatment. This isn't just about missing access. It's about the way I've been treated. It's about being disrespected. I need this issue resolved now." The representative was quick to reassure her. "I understand your frustration, ma'am, and I'm so sorry for the inconvenience you've faced. I will immediately forward this to our management team and make sure someone gets in touch with you right away to resolve this." The CEO could hear the sincerity in the representative's voice, but she had heard enough vague promises for one day. "I expect more than just an apology," she said, her voice steady but demanding. "I've worked hard to get to where I am, and I'm not going to be treated like this. Please make sure that I speak to someone who can truly make this right." After a few moments of silence, the representative spoke again. "Of course, ma'am. I will escalate this issue right now. I'll make sure someone from management contacts you directly. Thank you for your patience." The call ended, and the CEO hung up, feeling a slight sense of relief that the matter had at least been escalated. But she wasn't fooling herself into thinking that it was resolved just yet. She had been in the business world long enough to know that change often came only when you demanded it, and sometimes you had to be persistent. She decided to step out of her room and take a walk to clear her mind. The hotel's stunning architecture and grand lobby did little to calm her nerves. Everything about this place had once felt welcoming, but now it all seemed a little cold, a little distant. She couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that this wasn't just a case of poor customer service. There was something about the way she had been treated that felt more personal, more deliberate. As she walked around the hotel, she started to notice the way the staff interacted with other guests. There was no denying it. Their demeanor with her had been noticeably different. The way they hesitated before offering help, The way they avoided eye contact, it all pointed to one thing. She was being treated differently, and it wasn't because of a technical error. She couldn't prove it yet, but the feeling in her gut told her she was right. This was about more than just a booking mistake. She tried to push the thought from her mind, focusing instead on her business meetings the next day. She had an important presentation to give, one that could potentially secure a new partnership for her company. The last thing she needed was to be distracted by this hotel incident, but it was hard to ignore. She wasn't just being disrespected as a guest. This was about her reputation as a powerful and influential woman in business. It was about making sure that no one, especially not a luxury hotel, forgot that she deserved to be treated with the utmost respect. As evening fell, the CEO received a call from the hotel's management team. The voice on the other end was apologetic but also professional. "Good evening, ma'am. This is the hotel's general manager. I understand you had some concerns regarding your VIP access, and I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience you faced. I want to personally ensure this issue is addressed and taken care of immediately." The morning after the phone call with the hotel's general manager, the CEO couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. While the manager had promised that the situation would be looked into, there was still a lingering doubt in her mind. The offer of complimentary VIP access was a nice gesture, but it felt more like an attempt to pacify her rather than a genuine solution. She had made it clear that this was about respect, not special treatment. As she prepared for her business meetings later that day, she kept replaying the events from the previous evening. She had worked hard to build her reputation, not just in her own industry but across the business world. Her success was a product of years of dedication, and she expected the same level of professionalism from others. She wasn't just another guest at the hotel. She was a person who deserved respect. The meetings went well, but her mind kept drifting back to the hotel. Despite the success of her business day, she couldn't fully focus on the task at hand. Her gut told her that something was off. She knew that if she didn't get the answers she needed, she wouldn't be able to let it go. She couldn't let a high-end hotel get away with this, especially after treating her so poorly. But she wasn't going to rush into any decisions. She needed more clarity. That evening, after finishing her work, she decided to take a walk around the hotel to clear her mind. It was something she often did when she needed to think. The lobby was bustling with guests and everything seemed to be running smoothly, just as it always had. But the CEO couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between how she was being treated and the treatment others were receiving. She saw the hotel staff greeting other guests with genuine smiles, ushering them to the VIP section with ease. The disparity was hard to ignore. She couldn't understand why she was being singled out. Her credentials spoke for themselves. She wasn't a random guest. She had business ties that extended beyond the city. She was used to being treated with the utmost respect, not just as a guest, but as a businesswoman in her own right. The way she had been made to feel small was still fresh in her mind. As she walked back to the front desk to get some water, she overheard a conversation between a group of guests who had just checked in. They were laughing and chatting with the staff, and it was clear that they were being given special attention. One of the staff members even escorted them to the elevator, something she had never experienced despite the many times she had stayed at the hotel. She wondered why. Why were they being treated so differently? Was this really just an error, or was there something more to it? Her frustration grew. She wasn't about to make a scene, but she couldn't let this issue slide. She had already made her feelings known to the management, but she knew that wasn't enough. She needed to take action. The next morning, before her meeting with her business partners, she decided to confront the hotel's management once more. She walked into the lobby with a clear sense of purpose. The hotel's front desk was busy, but she wasn't interested in waiting for another manager to come to her. She wanted answers, and she wanted them now. She approached the front desk and asked to speak with the manager. The receptionist, who had greeted her when she first arrived, looked surprised to see her again so soon. "Of course, ma'am. I'll let the manager know you're here." A few minutes later, the same manager from the previous evening approached her. He gave her a forced smile, but she could see that he was nervous. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" he asked, his voice polite but distant. The CEO didn't waste any time with pleasantries. "I need to understand why I was treated the way I was yesterday. This isn't just about VIP access. It's about the way I was made to feel as though I didn't belong here. I've been a loyal guest of your hotel and I deserve to be treated with respect. Can you explain to me why I was treated differently? The manager seemed caught off guard by her directness, but he quickly composed himself. I apologize again for the inconvenience, ma'am. There was an issue with our reservation system, and that caused some confusion. I can assure you that it wasn't intentional. The CEO raised an eyebrow. Is that what you think? That it was just a technical glitch? The manager's face reddened slightly and he shifted uncomfortably. Yes, ma'am. That's what we believe happened. But I'll look into it more thoroughly to make sure this doesn't happen again. The CEO wasn't convinced. She had heard enough excuses already. I appreciate your willingness to look into it, but I don't think this is just about a glitch. You need to understand that this isn't just about my access to VIP services. This is about how I've been treated and the lack of respect I've received. I won't let that go. The manager nodded slowly. I understand your frustration, ma'am. I will make sure this is addressed with the team. The CEO felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she was glad the manager was finally acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, but on the other hand, she knew this wasn't enough. She wasn't going to let them sweep this under the rug. She had dealt with too many situations in her career where things were handled quietly, only for the same issues to crop up again later. This time she was determined to ensure that it wouldn't happen again, either to her or to anyone else. She left the hotel manager's office. Her mind, or the next day, the CEO found herself in a familiar situation, preparing for another round of meetings. She had put the hotel issue on the back burner, but it was still there, lingering in her mind. She couldn't quite shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Her business partners had no idea what she'd been dealing with, but she knew that she couldn't let herself be distracted. She had work to do, and she would handle this hotel issue later. The meetings were long and demanding, but the CEO handled them with ease, as she always did. She was sharp, confident, and focused. But deep down, she knew she couldn't leave the situation unresolved. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that it wasn't just about being denied VIP access. It was about the principle of the matter. The way she had been treated, the way her authority had been questioned. It didn't sit right with her. She had made her name in the business world through hard work and determination, and no hotel or person was going to make her feel small or invisible. Later in the evening, after the meetings were done and she had returned to her hotel room, she received a call that she had been waiting for. It was from the corporate office of the hotel chain. The representative who answered was polite, but clearly knew that the CEO wasn't calling just to chat. Good evening, ma'am. I'm following up regarding your recent stay with us. I understand you've had some concerns, and I wanted to personally make sure they are addressed. I'm here to listen. The CEO took a deep breath, trying to keep her frustration in check. Thank you for calling. I'll be direct with you. I'm still not satisfied with how I was treated. This isn't just about the VIP access issue. It's about the way I was made to feel like I didn't belong here. I've been a loyal guest of your hotel and I've always felt welcomed. But that changed the moment I walked in yesterday. I don't know why, but I was treated differently. I'm not going to pretend it didn't bother me. There was a pause on the other end of the line. The representative seemed to be processing her words carefully before responding. I understand, ma'am, and I sincerely apologize again for the inconvenience. From what I've gathered, the issue stemmed from a mix-up with the reservation system, and unfortunately that led to some confusion about your status as a VIP guest. I assure you this wasn't intentional. The CEO couldn't help but shake her head even though the representative couldn't see her. I don't buy it. I've stayed at your hotel plenty of times. This has never happened before. It doesn't feel like a simple system error. It feels like something more, something deeper. I've worked my entire career to be treated with respect, and I won't allow anyone, especially not a business like yours, to make me feel like I'm not important. The representative quickly apologized again. I completely understand your frustration, ma'am, and I want to make this right. I'm personally going to look into this matter and ensure that the situation is addressed. I will also make sure that your future stays with us are smooth and without any issues. While the apology was appreciated, the CEO knew that words alone wouldn't fix this. She needed action, and she needed it now. Look, she said, I'm not asking for special treatment. What I'm asking for is respect. I want to make sure that no other guest, especially women like me, is ever made to feel less than anyone else simply because of who they are. I want a change in how things are done here, and I want to know what steps you're taking to make sure this doesn't happen again." The representative was silent for a moment, clearly reflecting on what the CEO had said. "You're absolutely right, ma'am. This shouldn't have happened. And I want you to know that we're taking your concerns seriously. I will personally follow up with the management team to ensure that the issue is fully investigated. We don't take situations like this lightly, and we'll make sure to make things right." The CEO paused before responding, wanting to ensure her words were heard. "Good, I'm glad to hear that. But I'm going to be honest with you. If this is something that gets swept under the rug or if it happens again, I will take my business elsewhere. And I will make sure others know why I left." She wasn't threatening or making empty promises. She was simply stating the truth. She had worked hard to build her reputation, and no one, especially not a luxury hotel, was going to take that away from her. "I completely understand, ma'am," the representative responded. "I'll make sure to stay in close contact with you throughout this process. We'll get to the bottom of this." The call ended and the CEO hung up, feeling a slight sense of relief. It wasn't over yet, but at least the ball was in motion. Now she just had to wait and see how the hotel would respond. She wasn't going to let them off the hook. Not this time. For the rest of the evening, the CEO tried to unwind, but her thoughts kept circling back to the hotel. She knew this wasn't just about one bad experience. It was about standing up for herself and for anyone who had ever been made to feel less than they were. She wasn't just fighting for VIP access. She was fighting for dignity and respect. That night, she couldn't sleep much. Her mind raced with thoughts of what might happen next. Would the hotel take her seriously? Or would they just offer more excuses and move on? She didn't know the answer, but one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let it go. She would make sure her voice was heard no matter what. The days following her call to the hotel's corporate office felt like a whirlwind. The CEO had been focused on her meetings, but the issue with the hotel was always in the back of her mind. She couldn't help but think that this situation needed closure, not just for herself but for anyone else who might find themselves in the same position. She knew the hotel chain would likely try to move on from the matter, offering a few apologies and hoping things would blow over. But for her, it was never just about a misunderstanding. It was about something bigger: respect, dignity, and the unspoken assumption that some people, no matter how successful they were, could be treated differently. As the week went on, she received a series of emails and phone calls from various members of the hotel's corporate team. Each conversation was apologetic, but the CEO couldn't shake the feeling that the apologies were becoming too routine. Everyone was saying the right things, but there was no real action. They told her they had conducted an internal investigation, and they were making changes to ensure that something like this would never happen again. But she wasn't convinced. She had heard it all before. One evening, as she sat in her hotel room looking over some documents for an upcoming presentation, her phone rang. The name on the screen was familiar: another representative from the hotel's corporate office. At this point, she had become almost numb to the rehearsed apologies, but she still picked up the phone. She needed answers, and she was determined to get them. "Good evening," signed CEO's name. "This is Rep's name from the hotel's corporate office. How are you today?" The CEO could tell the representative was trying hard to sound friendly and sincere, but the formal tone didn't fool her. She decided to cut to the chase. "I'm doing well, thank you. But I have to admit, I'm not entirely satisfied with the way this situation has been handled so far. You've been in contact with me, but there's been no real resolution. What I need is an explanation for why this happened in the first place." The representative seemed to take a breath before responding. "I understand your concerns, and I truly apologize for the way things have unfolded. We've reviewed the entire situation, and we agree that the service you received was unacceptable. We're taking full responsibility for the confusion regarding your VIP access, and we are already making changes internally to prevent this from happening again. I assure you this is a priority for us." The CEO was still skeptical. "I appreciate your assurances, but I want more than just a promise. I want to understand why it happened. Why was I treated differently than other guests? And why was I made to feel like my presence wasn't valued?" The representative hesitated for a moment. "I honestly don't have all the details on that specific situation, but I do know that it stemmed from a mix-up on our end. We've had some internal communication issues that affected the way our team interacted with you. It was a mistake, and we are deeply sorry for it. The CEO could tell the representative was trying to deflect, and it only frustrated her more. A mistake, huh? She said, her voice cool. That's not enough. You don't just mix up a VIP guest. This wasn't a simple error. I've been in the business world long enough to know when something doesn't feel right. You say you're working on internal changes, but that's not enough. I need to know what specifically is being done to address the issue. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, the CEO wondered if the representative would continue to avoid the question. But then the voice on the other end spoke again, quieter this time. You're absolutely right, the representative said. I don't want to make excuses for what happened. We're in the process of reviewing how we train our staff, particularly on how to handle VIP guests. We're also looking at the overall guest experience to make sure that all of our visitors are treated with the same level of care and respect. The CEO knew that this was as close to an admission of fault as she was going to get. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I appreciate that, she said. But I need you to understand that it's not just about what happened to me. It's about creating a culture where no one is treated like they don't matter. If I'm going to stay at your hotel again, I need to know that this issue is being addressed in a way that will benefit all guests. Not just me. There was a pause, and the CEO could hear the sound of typing on the other end of the line. Finally, the representative responded, I can assure you that your feedback is being taken seriously. I've already escalated your concerns to our executive team, and they're reviewing how we can improve our services. I'll personally make sure that this is resolved to your satisfaction. The CEO felt the anger she had been holding inside slowly begin to dissipate, replaced by a feeling of cautious optimism. She wasn't going to let her guard down just yet, but at least the hotel was finally listening. The conversation ended with the representative assuring her that they would keep her updated. And while the CEO felt like this was a step in the right direction, she knew that words alone weren't going to change the system. Action was what mattered. She decided to take a proactive step herself. The next day, before leaving for another round of business meetings, she drafted an email. It was a carefully worded letter addressed to the hotel's CEO and top management team. She wanted them to understand her perspective, not just as a disgruntled guest, but as a businesswoman who had built her career on fairness and respect. In the email, she laid out her experience in detail, explaining not just how she had been treated differently, but how the issue represented a much larger problem within the hospitality industry. She spoke about the systemic biases that often affected people like her, people who were successful, powerful, and often underestimated because of their appearance. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She didn't want them to simply apologize and move on. She wanted change, and she wasn't afraid to demand it. By the time she hit send, she felt a sense of relief. This wasn't just about her. This was about ensuring that future guests wouldn't have to experience the same treatment. She knew that it was unlikely that everything would change overnight, but this was her way of holding the hotel accountable. The next day, the CEO received a response to her email. The subject line read, "A personal response to your concerns." She opened it, eager to see what the hotel's top executives had to say. Dear CEO's name, thank you for taking the time to share your concerns with us. We've read your email thoroughly and fully understand your frustration. Your experience was unacceptable, and we are deeply sorry for how you were treated. Several weeks had passed since the CEO's last interaction with the hotel, and she had mostly focused on her business. But the issue still lingered in the back of her mind. She had seen promises made, heard apologies, and received emails assuring her that the hotel was taking steps to address the issue. But promises, she knew, were easy to make. She needed to see results. The hotel had made its move. But now it was time for her to take action again. One afternoon, as she sat in her office reviewing some important reports, her phone rang. It was the hotel's corporate office again. The CEO took a deep breath before answering. She had been waiting for this call for some time, but she wasn't sure what to expect. Good afternoon, CEO's name. This is Rep's name from the hotel's corporate office. I hope you're doing well today. She could hear the sincerity in the representative's voice, and while it was encouraging, the CEO knew better than to let her guard down too quickly. I'm doing well. Thank you, the CEO replied, but I've been waiting for an update. I know you've been looking into the situation, but I need to know exactly what's been done to prevent something like this from happening again." The representative paused for a moment, clearly gathering their thoughts before responding. "I understand, and I truly appreciate your patience throughout this process. I'm calling today to personally update you on the steps we've taken to address the concerns you raised." The CEO leaned forward in her chair, listening closely. "I'm glad to hear that, but I need specifics. What exactly has been done? You can't expect me to just take your word for it. This needs to be tangible." There was another short pause. "Of course, I completely understand. First, I want to let you know that we've made significant changes to our staff training. We've implemented a new program that focuses on inclusivity, diversity, and respect for all guests, regardless of their background or status. This training is now mandatory for all front desk and guest services employees, and it's being rolled out across all of our locations." The CEO nodded, absorbing the information. She had heard about these types of changes before, but the proof would be in the execution. "That's a good start," she said, "but it's not enough. It's important that the staff truly internalize these values, not just memorize a script. Are there any checks in place to make sure this isn't just a temporary fix?" The representative quickly responded, "Yes, we are also introducing regular evaluations to monitor how well these changes are being implemented. Guest feedback will play a huge role in this. We want to ensure that everyone feels valued when they walk through our doors, and we are committing to doing everything possible to prevent a situation like the one you experienced from happening again." The CEO felt a glimmer of hope, but wasn't ready to fully trust the hotel just yet. She had been disappointed before, and she didn't want to let her guard down too soon. "I appreciate that, but I'm still skeptical. I've seen companies promise change and fail to deliver. This is something I'm watching closely." "I understand your skepticism," the representative acknowledged, "and that's why we want to make sure you're fully informed. As part of our new approach, we're also creating a direct line of communication between the corporate office and our guests. If any guest feels that their concerns aren't being addressed, they will have an open channel to escalate the issue directly. We've also set up a dedicated team to handle VIP and high-profile guests, ensuring that their needs are met with the utmost care and respect." The CEO was impressed with the comprehensive approach the hotel seemed to be taking, but she still wasn't ready to let go of her need for accountability. "That sounds promising, but what about the management team that was involved when I stayed there? Have they been held accountable for what happened?" The representative hesitated for a moment. "I want to be transparent with you, ma'am. The management team has been made aware of the situation and is being retrained. However, we don't take disciplinary action lightly. Our goal is to provide opportunities for growth and improvement, not just punishment. The manager involved in your case is participating in additional leadership training, and we're committed to helping them better understand the importance of inclusivity." The CEO was satisfied with the fact that there would be an opportunity for improvement, but she couldn't shake the feeling that some form of accountability was still missing. She wasn't asking for harsh punishment, but she wanted to make sure the message was clear that this kind of behavior was unacceptable. "I understand the need for growth, but there also needs to be consequences. If your team members aren't held accountable, it will send the wrong message." The representative took a deep breath before responding. "You're absolutely right, ma'am. We are addressing the situation internally, and while we're focused on improving our processes, we are also ensuring that the individuals involved take full responsibility for their actions. I can assure you that we're not brushing this off. We are committed to making real changes." After a few more minutes of conversation, the representative concluded the call with a final promise. "We value you as a guest and we want to earn back your trust. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more concerns. We will keep you updated on our progress." The CEO hung up the phone, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. It was clear that the hotel was taking steps to address the issues, but time would tell whether they would follow through. She knew that things weren't going to change overnight, but she was encouraged by the fact that the company was actively listening and making efforts to change. Still, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had led her to this point. She had started out simply wanting to be treated with respect, to receive the same level of service that anyone would expect at a luxury hotel. But the situation had grown into something much bigger. It wasn't just about one experience, it was about challenging the way businesses treated their customers and ensuring that people from all walks of life were given the respect they deserved. Over the next few weeks, The CEO continued to monitor the hotel's progress, but she also focused on her own work. She knew that the road to true change was long, and while she wasn't going to let the hotel off the hook, she also knew that she had her own mission to complete. Her focus was always on the bigger picture, on building her company, on making a difference in her industry, and on paving the way for other people to succeed and be recognized for their contributions. One evening, as she reflected on the entire ordeal, she received a final email from the hotel's corporate office. The subject line read, "A personal thank you. Dear CEO's name. Thank you for your continued patience as we work to improve our services. We wanted to personally reach out to let you know that we've implemented the changes we discussed, and we're confident that the changes will benefit all of our guests. We deeply appreciate the feedback you've given us, and we truly believe it will help us become a better company moving forward. As a token of appreciation for your feedback, we'd like to offer you a complimentary stay at any of our locations. We hope this gesture reflects our commitment to rebuilding your trust. Sincerely, Hotel's executive team." The CEO smiled slightly as she read the email. It wasn't the reason she had fought for change, but it was a nice gesture. More than that, it was proof that her voice had been heard. The hotel wasn't perfect, and there was still work to be done. But for the first time, she felt confident that things were moving in the right direction. As she closed her laptop, she thought about the many battles she had fought throughout her life and career. This one wasn't over, but she had made a difference. And that, more than anything, was what mattered most. We value your feedback and want you to know that we are taking steps to ensure this doesn't happen again. We are immediately implementing changes to our staff training, focusing on inclusivity and respect for all of our guests. We are committed to creating an environment where everyone, no matter their background, feels valued and welcomed. We hope that you will give us the opportunity to restore your trust in our brand. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further concerns. Sincerely, Hotel CEO and management team. The response was heartfelt and sincere. It wasn't the perfect solution, but it was a start. The CEO smiled to herself. She had made her point. The hotel had listened, and now it was up to them to follow through on their promises. But for the first time since the incident, she felt like the situation was finally moving in the right direction. She closed her laptop, ready to face the next challenge. But as she walked out of her room, she felt lighter than she had in days. This wasn't just about a hotel or a bad experience. It was about standing up for what was right and knowing that when you take a stand, change can happen. The next morning, she received an email from the hotel's corporate office. The subject line read, "Follow up on your recent stay." The CEO opened it, her eyes scanning the words quickly. "Dear CEO's name. We wanted to follow up with you regarding your recent experience at our hotel. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and misunderstanding that occurred during your stay. We take your feedback very seriously, and we have already begun investigating the issue with our team. Please know that we are committed to providing the highest level of service to all of our guests, and we are taking immediate steps to ensure that this doesn't happen again in the future. We are also offering you a complimentary upgrade on your next stay, as well as a full refund for your recent visit. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we hope to regain your trust in the future. Sincerely, Hotel's corporate team." The email was polite and professional, but the CEO wasn't entirely satisfied. The promise of a full refund and an upgrade for her next visit was nice, but she wasn't interested in a freebie. She wasn't looking for compensation. She was looking for a change in how the hotel treated people like her. But the email was a good sign. At least the hotel had acknowledged her concerns and they were taking action. Still, she couldn't help but feel a sense of skepticism. This was a major hotel chain, and she knew that change could take time. Sometimes it took longer than she'd like. But one thing was certain. She wasn't going to back down. She would keep pushing for answers, and if the hotel wanted her business in the future, they would have to earn it, acing with thoughts of what to do next. As she passed through the lobby, she couldn't help but overhear more conversations. People were being treated with such care and attention, while she was left to feel like an afterthought. It was hard to ignore the stark contrast. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just an oversight. It wasn't just a mistake. It was something more, something deeper. She couldn't put her finger on it yet, but she was going to find out what it was. That afternoon, she made another call to the corporate office. This time, she wasn't going to accept a vague promise of a follow-up. She wanted immediate action. She explained to the representative once more how she had been treated, emphasizing how the situation had made her feel. She didn't just want a refund or free access to the VIP lounge. She wanted assurances that this wouldn't happen to her again. More importantly, she wanted to know why it had happened in the first place. The representative on the other end of the line seemed surprised at the level of detail in her complaint. "I'm so sorry to hear about your experience, ma'am. This certainly isn't the kind of service we want to provide to our guests. I will escalate this immediately to the highest level of management, and will ensure that this is thoroughly investigated." The CEO's patience was running thin. "I appreciate your attention to this, but I'm not interested in vague assurances anymore. I want results. I want to know why this happened, and I want to be sure that it doesn't happen again. You can tell your team that I'm not going to back down on this." The conversation ended with the representative promising to escalate the matter, but the CEO knew that she had taken all the necessary steps to hold the hotel accountable. The next time she heard from them, she expected answers, not excuses. And if she didn't get the answers she wanted, she would take her business elsewhere. The last thing she needed was to stay in a hotel that made her feel invisible. As she hung up the phone, she couldn't help but think that this wasn't just about one bad experience. This was about standing up for herself and demanding the respect she knew she deserved. She had worked too hard for too long to let something like this go unnoticed. This hotel and every other establishment like it would have to learn that she wasn't someone to be ignored or dismissed. The CEO took a deep breath. "I appreciate the apology, but I need more than just words. This isn't just about VIP access, it's about respect. I've stayed at your hotel many times and I've never encountered anything like this. What happened today was not just a mistake. I need to know why this happened, and I need assurances that this won't happen again." The manager seemed to hesitate for a moment before responding. "I completely understand, and I want to assure you that this is being taken very seriously. We've had some issues with our reservation system, and it seems there was a misunderstanding with your booking. I sincerely apologize for the confusion. I'd like to offer you complimentary access to our VIP services for the remainder of your stay." The CEO's patience was running thin. "I don't want just a free pass to the VIP lounge. What I want is a guarantee that this won't happen again to me, or to any other guest for that matter. I'm not interested in special treatment. I'm interested in being treated with the same level of respect that any VIP guest should expect." The manager seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. "You're absolutely right, and I'll make sure that we review our policies and procedures to ensure something like this doesn't happen again. I'll also personally look into your reservation and make sure everything is corrected for the future. Please know that we value your business and your trust." It was a start, but the CEO knew this wasn't the end. She had already made up her mind. If she was going to let this situation go, it would be on her terms, not theirs. She wasn't going to let a hotel dictate how she was treated. Not now, not ever. The next day, as she prepared for her business meetings, she still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Was it a coincidence that she had been treated so poorly, or was there something deeper at play? Whatever the truth was, she knew one thing for sure. This would not be the last conversation she would have with this hotel's management. She would make sure of it. The manager's face reddened slightly and he adjusted his posture. "I can understand your frustration, and I truly apologize for the misunderstanding. I'll personally ensure that this gets sorted out immediately." But the CEO wasn't ready to accept that explanation. "I'm not just frustrated. I'm disappointed. I've always felt valued as a guest here. This treatment isn't just about the VIP access. It's about the respect I'm receiving. Do you understand that?" The manager nodded, acknowledging the seriousness of her words. "I absolutely understand, and I assure you this was never our intention. I will personally look into the situation and make sure this is corrected." The CEO stood silently for a moment, absorbing his words. She had worked too hard to get where she was to allow a hotel to treat her like just another guest. She had earned her position, and she expected to be treated accordingly. But there was one thing she knew for sure. This wasn't over yet. As she left the manager's office, she felt the weight of the situation settling in. The evening ahead was still uncertain, but she wasn't going to let this go. She wasn't just going to accept being treated this way. She had dealt with far worse in her career, and she knew that standing up for herself was the only way to make sure this didn't happen again. The CEO picked up her phone and began dialing the hotel's corporate number. She wasn't going to let this mistake slide. If she had to, she would take it all the way to the top.